Welcome to Nordic Magic Link, the podcast rooted in Nordic Shamanism, where we also discover other spiritual practices rooted in nature. And we look to our ancestral backgrounds to find forgotten practices. Topics include spirituality, health, and natural lifestyle, finding your soul's purpose, and magic. My own practice is Nordic Shamanism, which you will learn about in this episode, and it is the link that connects the different topics we will look into. We look to our roots to find guidance in life and inspiration for spiritual practices and healthy, natural living. I help people connect to their ancestral spiritual practice by speaking about my own journey to finding Nordic shamanism and the magic within music. When I work with clients one-on-one, I take them on journeys using my drum and my voice and the old ways of the North. In this modern world of great deception and unrest, finding your roots and applying them to your modern-day life can be a tremendous gift in creating balance and awareness in your life. I'm Emma, a Dane, a professional singer, songwriter, a healer, a völve, born on Odin's Day in Odense, meaning Odin's Island, in the tiny kingdom of Denmark, now living in California. I'm inspired by my Nordic roots and its ways and traditional music. I practice Nordic shamanism and use my voice to sing myself or others into meditation, a trance-like state, like a Seiðr practitioner, a sorceress, a so-called völve, did during the Viking era, and most likely earlier in the North. Shamanism is the only spiritual practice that has been practiced all over the world, in all cultures at some point, and I think that gives it some credence. What is shamanism? Shamanism is when a shaman or a völve in Nordic shamanism uses repetitive chanting, drumming, or dancing to go into a form of trance where they can connect with other realms and communicate with spirits of the ancestors or nature spirits in order to affect this world through magic, or to seek guidance or divination on behalf of themselves or others. Dancing, repetitive drumming, or chanting puts the mind into a theta wave state where one can experience a deep form of meditation. Nordic shamanism is the modern-day term for what, in the Viking era, was called Seiðr. A Seiðr practitioner was called a völve, which means carrier of the magical staff. What we know from the few written sources we have is that the völve had these tools for her shamanic work: the staff, a high seat, side song, also called galdr, and udsidning, which means sitting out. Sitting out was, as one can imagine, when you sit outside at night and look for signs in nature to guide you. This is a form of deep meditation in nature. Shamans in all parts of the world work closely with nature, like witches and völvas, and you can say that a witch is what the völve turned into after Christianity had conquered the North. Let me read some quotes from the Danish völve Annette Høst's website, shamanism.dk, so you can get a better understanding of what Seiðr is and what the völve is. Seiðr is originally a Norse shamanic tradition, or could be seen as an old Scandinavian form of magic with strong shamanic traits. Seiðr was a living tradition used for divination and transformation up until Middle or Late Viking Age. The ritual structure of Seiðr consists of magic song, staff, and a ritual seat. It is the combination of all three elements used in a shamanic way that gives the unique quality of Seiðr. Only written sources are bits and pieces in the mythical Edda poems and the sagas from late Viking Age and early Middle Ages. In this literature, a practitioner of Seiðr is called a Seiðrkone, meaning side woman, or side man, or völva, meaning staff carrier, or spåkone, meaning seer. The Eddic poems and the sagas mostly mention women as practitioners of Seiðr, but this might have been different at an earlier age. Seiðr is much older than both the written sources and the Vikings. Most likely, its roots are in Iron Age fertility cults and early shamanism, and the tradition thus a lifespan of more than 1,000 years. The old texts only offer us glimpses of the practice in its latest days, and clearly it must have undergone many changes through its long life. To picture how a Seiðr session might unfold in the Viking era, we can turn to the most famous Seiðr account, that of Torbjörg Lillevølve, in the saga of Eric the Red. Torbjörg, an experienced professional wise woman and Seiðr-kone, is sitting on the side seat with her staff. The people who have summoned her to help solve the problems of illness and bad hunting luck in their settlement surround her singing the Seiðr song. Torbjörg's spirit allies gather around her, called by the haunting chanting, and the song transports her into an altered state of consciousness, into the spirit world. There we must imagine how she meets the spirits, divine beings or nature forces, asking for help on behalf of the suffering community. The saga is silent on this intimate part of the ritual. Her task completed, she signals the song to end. The saga then tells that she chants the outcome of her magic. Both health and fertility shall speedily return to the settlement. In the silent space following the song, Torbjörg is still between the worlds, and from there she gives divinatory answers to the questions put to her by individuals from the farm about health, the crops, and the future. Torbjörg's story tells us about Seiðr done as a big community ritual, but Seiðr can also be done with just a few people. In Laxdæla saga, a family performs an outdoor Seiðr together, singing strong songs raising a storm to wreck a ship. In other sagas, Turid performs Seiðr to bring fish back into a barren fjord, and Hallgrim uses Seiðr to make his spear axe invincible. Seiðr can be done alone in nature, as the few ambiguous hints in the Eddic poem Völvespottum, Völvespa, the vision of the seers, might be indicating. As in all shamanic work, there is always a purpose for the Seiðr, and in short, it can be used to transform, both to harm and heal, and to seek vision, including knowledge about the future. There are 4 main branches of magic described in Norse tradition: galdr, rune magic, Seiðr, and udsidning, which is sitting out overnight for wisdom. And udsidning shares many traits with the vision quests of other cultures, and it was practiced by laymen as well as professional, magically trained people. Galdr, rune magic, and Seiðr are skilled magic traditions not found elsewhere in the world. The art of galdr. The song is central to Seiðr, but magic song also had its own independent tradition in galdr. Galdr stands for sung spells and incantations used in highly skillful and differentiated ways. A galdr is directed at something or somebody and can have all the purposes and traits that shamanic songs in general have. Sometimes a new one is born out of the need and the moment. Sometimes a galdr is passed on for centuries. The staff. The staff must be part of the core of Seiðr, as it has given the vulva her name, she who carries the magic staff or just staff carrier. But we are never told how this magic wand is used. In the account of Torbjörg Lillevølve, her staff is adorned with stones and metal. During Seiðr, the staff is a power antenna. It is a lightning rod. It grows hot. It comes alive and vibrates, It moves like a snake in the hands. It keeps the focus and direction of flight clear, at the same time as it grounds. It is the tree of life, connecting the lower world and the sky world, power flowing through it. The spiritual roots of Seiðr. The fertility deities Frey and Freya were members of a clan of gods and spirits called the Vanir. The earth-centered Vanir religion is a spirituality of peace and plenty, including sexuality and magic in the sacred realm. It is much closer to animism and non-duality than later Viking gods, the Aesir, where the most well-known are Odin, Thor, Galdr. The Vanir goddesses and gods of fertility are inseparable from a vast, omnipresent population of nature spirits, powers of fruitfulness, and elemental forces. People of that time were always aware of these beings. They were in daily communication and exchanged help with their spirit neighbors to ensure that both the land, the spirit, and humans would prosper. This is the spiritual foundation of the Seiðr, and obviously the vulva works within an intimate relationship with nature. It is from there she draws her power. Thus, the vulva represents the worldview of the older fertility and earth-oriented spirituality, and this shows in her Seiðr. The saga accounts often depict a conflict between the old vulva and a young man representing the newer, militant Viking culture. The written sources testify that the men of the Viking Age, even before Christianity, experienced more and more difficulty with the value system personified by the vulva. In fact, it provoked them and enraged them. Whereas women were the keepers of the old cult and spirituality, since it allowed them more power and freedom, it is tempting to read this conflict exclusively as male versus female values, men versus women, but if we do, we're likely to miss the point. The heart of this conflict is the choice between staying in harmony with nature or trying to conquer and dominate it. It was a vital choice then, it is a vital choice today, and it will show in our shamanic work. End quote. Now, I was so intrigued when I discovered that Seiðr practitioners in the Viking era, and probably earlier as well, would sing things into being. Manifestation by song, because I was already intuitively doing this, writing songs especially for this purpose. In my sessions with groups or individuals, I infuse my singing with healing energies and call on the Nordic gods and my spirit guides. And the goal is to bless, elevate, and nourish through the very real magic of music. How did I end up on the path of the vulva? As mentioned, I was born in Odense on the island Funen. Odense comes from Odinsø, which means Odin's island, and there are ruins of a Viking castle. And it is believed that Odense was one of the 3 major areas of Denmark where the Vikings had major fortresses. My mother is a Norwegian, my father was a Dane, and I grew up in Odense in the center among all the old buildings. I sang in the church choir for 8 years. I was not a member of the Danish Protestant Church, nor a Christian. I was raised in a New Age environment. But in Denmark, singing in church is a job, and a great job for a teenager. I enjoyed it tremendously. The church was 900 years old. I could easily picture the monks walking back and forth in the long rounded corridor. I love sensing history and visiting castles, and I often do this when in Denmark. In Denmark, the ocean is everywhere. Denmark consisting of islands, 2 major islands, many small ones, and the biggest part of Denmark is a peninsula attached to northern Germany. Fishermen and Vikings are in my blood, and the longing for travel and freedom was naturally in me. I moved to Los Angeles in 2007 in search of adventure and sunshine. I have lived in Hollywood and the Valley, and I have spent time abroad singing in China, Egypt, and Macau, as well as sung with a party band in Las Vegas at Paris, Hotel and Casino, and the Stratosphere. I now live in Topanga, in the Santa Monica Mountains, north of Los Angeles, and I sing mostly in LA or Palm Springs. Aside from singing with different bands and singing my own music, I have always been interested in the occult. My mother being a Reiki healer, and I was into New Age books and courses when I was a kid. In 2015, I met a Reiki master, and I trained with her because I wanted to learn more about energy work. And in 2016, I trained with a Wiccan witch for 6 months. But I mostly used the tools I learned from them privately. Moving away from your homeland, after a while, your roots seem more important than before, and I have always been fascinated by history. In 2013, I reconnected with my first boyfriend and first kiss, Asker, and he moved to California for me, and we got married in 2014. Asker has always been interested in Norse mythology and very involved in reenactment in Denmark. If you are unaware of what that is, it is people who get together for 1 week and live like we did back in the day. Some will be noblemen, others will be farmers or maids, and so on. So Asker knows a lot of our Scandinavian history, and I was inspired also by him and our conversations about the past. Then in 2017, my father passed away, and I found myself soul-searching more than ever. When a parent dies, it's half of you that dies, half of your bloodline, literally half of your DNA, and it really felt like a part of me died. So naturally, I went on a 3-day shamanic journey workshop in Sedona with a shaman. In these journeys, one of the things that came to me was that I needed to use music and singing as a magical tool, a transformational tool, manifestation by singing things into being, and not just as a way to entertain the masses. And when I later discovered that this is what the Seiðr practitioners, the vulvas, would do, I was so intrigued. I had intuitively found back to my own ancestors' spiritual roots. It took a year from having this realization till I started doing Seiðr with groups and individuals in my home in Topanga. I called these sessions Nordic Magic. The response was overwhelming. I found that people are hungry for grounding and for finding meaning in this strange, disconnected digital world. They are longing to find their roots and reconnect with nature, just like how I was feeling. I'll be right back after this important message. What if you could enter a parallel world to receive accurate guidance on the life situations you're facing? Well, if you have the skills for accessing a higher form of consciousness, you can. Through a practice called Shamanic Journeying, you can seek and receive this type of guidance and healing for yourself and others. If you're interested in learning this powerful skill, you won't want to miss a free virtual event with Sandra Ingerman, world-renowned teacher of shamanism, called The Healing Power of Shamanic Journeying: How to Access Inner Guidance from Helping Spirits. You can reserve your free space here in the top link of the show notes. Sandra has been teaching Shamanic Journeying to seekers and practitioners for more than 30 years. Learning this powerful practice helps you gain greater clarity and insights into any number of life challenges, from medical issues to difficult family dynamics to imbalanced relationships, even business and work struggles. During this free event, you'll discover why shamanism is relevant to our modern culture and can improve the quality of your life emotionally, mentally, and physically. How shamans view emotional and physical illness. How to harness the power of ceremony to create healing and spark transformation. Join for this fascinating workshop with one of the most renowned master teachers of shamanism. The workshop is free, but you must register, so use the link in the show notes. And now, back to today's topic of how I found Nordic shamanism. and my purpose in life. Why is finding your roots so important? I grew up in a New Age environment, and my mother was a family therapist and a healer, my father a musician, so I suppose I was already quite open-minded. The New Age movement is and has been very helpful to many people, but like all religions and cultural waves, there are some limitations and issues. And the fact that New Age is based on a mixture of Eastern religions and Helena Blavatsky's Theosophical Society, based in occultism and the Kabbalah, makes it for me, I feel, not relevant, like a stranger's religion, just like Christianity, which came out of the Middle East. I find much more power in diving into what my ancestors believed and how they practiced spirituality for thousands of years, before they were forced into Christianity by incredible violence. Just like it can be helpful to look at how your ancestors ate, and not expect to easily be able to break down beans and lentils like Indian people can, because they have been accustomed to it for thousands of years. I think there's power in not throwing away one's ancestors' knowledge and ways, because evolution takes time. And the more natural and close to one's heart a spiritual practice feels, the better it will work for you. In Scandinavia's pre-Christian society, ancestors were very important, not just as lineage, but for guidance and protection. The vulva would contact the ancestors, or the ancestors would come through in a session from the world of the dead with information for the individual, or the family, or the community. A fylke is the Norse word for a spirit guide. It is often an animal spirit, but it can also be more like a guardian angel or an ancestor. When I was on my Shamanic Journey workshop, I saw a few spirit animals, but the one that was consistent and I felt most connected to was the lion. After realizing that I have the energy of a lion with me at all times, I suddenly felt more safe, secure, and confident. A stranger walking close to me on a dark, empty street would frighten me, but when I remembered my lion, the fear went away. That doesn't mean you should stop being streetwise, it just means that you won't panic needlessly. For a few days after we had moved to a new house, I had been singing my Fylke Come to Me song. And one morning I found 2 dead birds on my doorstep. No blood, nothing odd looking. One small bird and one larger. At first I thought this can't be good, and I messaged my old neighbor, who's a bit of a gypsy witch, and she said, "That's really bad, you need to cleanse the house." I had already saged the house, but she said I need to do a larger style rinse of the house and walkway. The weird thing was, though, it didn't feel like a bad sign to me, but it wasn't until our landlord said, "That's so strange, because your cat is an indoor cat, but it seems like something a cat would do, leave a present for its owner." I thought, wow, some kind of cat left the birds for me, because I had been calling the energy to me, and I had left water in a bowl for birds, squirrels, and bobcats outside. It felt like a sign showing me this energy work is powerful. And I later saw the bobcat. He came out of the bush, a meter from me, stared at me. I said, "Hi." I thought he was beautiful. And he looked like a big cat with pointy ears. He then made a gesture to come closer to me, but I thought, this is wise. And I stood up. He then ran away. I think he was going for the bowl of water next to me. I felt like these 2 incidences happened because of my excessive chanting, calling for my fylke, the cat energy. Now, chanting can be very powerful. This is why it is used in so many shamanic and spiritual practices around the world. Another example. A street in Copenhagen was just a regular old working class residential area with small apartments stacked upon each other. A lady who met with a group of Buddhists moved into an apartment in that street, and they started chanting for that it would become a vibrant street full of life with cafes and boutiques. I don't know how long or how many times they chanted for this, but the street is like that today. It is the only street around that area where there are cafes and cool, earthy stores on a residential street. Chanting is very powerful. Everything in this world is energy waves, and so is sound. During my 3-day Shamanic Journey workshop, what came to me was that I wasn't born to sing other people's music, or singing what I thought others wanted to hear. I was born to create and bring forth a new energy affecting the world through sound. My shaman said, "When will you stop singing other people's songs and start singing what wants to be sung?" My response is now. So, after finding my spiritual roots, I also found my musical niche. I have released 2 EPs, an album and a few singles. One EP was country pop, the other one was avant-garde. The album was pop rock with some Nordic folk elements, and my singles were collaborations with a DJ and consist of pop or dance. I have also sung with many bands all over the world, and I'm used to singing everything from AC/DC to Beyoncé and Norah Jones. And I like all of it. Needless to say, I was too rootless, too all over the place to attract real fans, because if they heard one song they liked, they wouldn't like the next one. I was also changing my appearance constantly, which is also a no-no in the music industry. Again, because you have to attract the fan, they need to want to buy your product, which is you. As I mentioned earlier, my father had passed, and one night I dreamt that he was creating a stage for me in his office where he used to practice and book gigs. He was playing his saxophone, and when the song ended, I asked what the song was about. My mom asked him, "How did you feel when you played?" He responded, and then she said, "Well, then that's what the song is about." The meaning was clear. Your feeling when you act, sing, write, dance, make art is the energy your craft will bring with it. And in the dream, I was then singing songs that were very unique and stemmed from a mix of my musical background. When I was very young, singing Nordic folk songs and Danish hymns in church, and then in my early 20s, I worked in a restaurant in an old theater in Copenhagen. We'd serve the theater guests before they went to see the play at the theater, but we'd also sing for them, mostly a cappella, evergreens, standards, and oldies from old Danish films and musicals. And my father being a jazz musician and my musical taste always being so eclectic, I realized from my dream that what my father was showing me was that my uniqueness was blending these styles that were naturally in me, styles that most people have never heard of. This would be considered a big plus in the music industry. Here's an example of the new music I create.
Livets dans sang og leg, hej og dig har du mig. Solen går over os, ved vi når hvad vi så. Men trolden han lurer i skyggen, det skuer tværer i lykken. Hører han stemmer som en lykke, der glemmer. Hvad skal det til for? Mørket vinder over solen, skumringen æder hver dag. Tiden forriger sin dag. Livets sang, hjerteklang, tog på vej samme gang. Solen går, intet står, hvad vi når er, hvad Mørket vinder over solen, skumringen æder hver dag. Døden forgiver sit tag, og trolden han lurer i skyggen. Det skuer et sværd i lykken. Vi hører hans stemmer som en lykke, der glemmer. Hvad skal det til for? Mørket vinder over solen, skumringen æder hver dag. Døden forgiver sit tag. Døden forgiver sit tag. Døden forgiver sit tag.
If you'd like to support this podcast, consider becoming a Patreon on patreon.com/Nordic Magic Link. You can donate as little as $3 a month. Patreon is a brilliant tool for independent artists of all kinds. Patreon supports artists and content creators like myself and gives us a way to connect more personally with our followers. It removes the fear of how much am I going to make this month and allows artists like myself to take more chances with our art and content. Everyone who pledges will be rewarded with exclusive access to different levels of Nordic music magic. All the music you heard on this podcast was my own music, and you can go to emmacairo.com, and that's EMMACAIRO.com. If you like this podcast, please consider giving it a review or thumbs up. It really makes a difference on iTunes or any of the other platforms. And I hope to talk to you again soon. Thank you.